I call the special meeting to order at 6:30 p.m. Please stand for the pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Play ball. All right. First up, we have our consent agenda. This is on the construction projects. Are there any questions on the contracts in the consent agenda?
No.
Anybody? No. All right. Do I have a motion to approve?
Move to approve.
A second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. All right.
Just one quick. So Ida's with us, right?
Oh,
so we'll make sure
about
that,
that.
yeah. So we'll just make sure that she, during our comment,
Yep.
she has. She's ready. Okay. Thank you. Yes. Yeah. So maybe we can.
Is she and I?
Yeah.
Are you and I? Okay, awesome.
Let the record show that was a
That
non-verbal
was
aye.
it. Do we have any citizen comments? No. All right. We're on to our work session. Board and superintendent update here.
You want me to start?
Sure.
Okay. All right. I've got some things I want to share my screen. Okay. So yes, a couple things. Actually, it's large. All right. So last week we hosted Knowledge Bowl at the high school. So Dale Croswell, who is our Knowledge Bowl coach and has been involved in Knowledge Bowl for decades, and the community member did a great job. I happened to be there, and we have a picture of Les and Mary Andriotti there on the right. So they were the official title. That is a judges. So you were your Knowledge Bowl judges. And so I got this opportunity to take a quick pic of those two helping out. And then on the left is Tom Crozier, who is a Rotarian who lives in Washougal, has been involved with Knowledge Bowl probably as long as Dale Croswell's been involved with Knowledge Bowl, because Mr. Croswell told me that Tom was one of his first volunteers. He volunteers for many things in this area. So he's an amazing partner of ours and a part of Rotary. So pretty amazing event at the high school last week. Love Knowledge Bowl. We have Knowledge Bowl not only at the high school, but also at the middle school. So on Saturday, our wrestlers were at Hawkinson. So this is a picture on the left is one of our student athletes pinning the Hawkinson athlete. And so he ended up going on. That's Henry Logan ended up winning, got first place. Wow. On the right. So our team won districts. So they didn't win the actual districts during the season, but they won this event. And so some of our wrestlers qualified for state, which is, I believe, is in 2 weeks. Some of them qualified for a wrestling event is either today or tomorrow, where they have one match to then qualify for state. It's a different format. So this was on Saturday. I probably watched 15 to 20 matches. There's 4 mats. They're happening all at the same time. I actually got to sit down. The coaches, there's 2 chairs next to each mat. And there were we had like 3 Washougal wrestlers wrestling at the same time. And so there was a chair open. So I sat down in that chair. And so because my brother wrestled, I felt like I know a little bit of wrestling. I wrestled for 1 day in high school and said, this is not for me. But it was such a great event to see our kids just do so well. There were a lot of community support. Community members wearing black and orange, and Heather Carver and John Carver. John Carver's our head coach. Heather's our girls head coach, and our coaching staff. They're just phenomenal. And to listen to them coach up our kids and always being very positive, but also coaching them up. And it's a challenging day. They're wrestling all day. So it was a wonderful day. And also at Hawkinson was honors band. So this is jump to guard, and there's a quote here from Dr. Snap that this is the most students we've had from jump to guard in 10 years. So all of those students were, I guess, identified to be a part of honors band, which was Saturday at Hawkinson. So we had those jump to guard students there. and they were practicing and they performed in the evening. So they spent most of the day at Hawkinson. This is our high school honors band individuals that participated. David Duarte there in the middle. So you see a lot of students again who were identified based on their skill and probably their commitment to participate in this event on Saturday. And then they had an evening concert. And they actually, I'll share with you the link to the YouTube of them actually performing Saturday night. And then here's Canyon Creek. So Laura Brandt is the first one of our staff members that I ran into Saturday morning. I had no idea that they were there, and I ran into with her as I was heading to the snack shack because the wrestling was just exhausting me watching it. So anyway, really a cool day for Washougal, the district and the community at Hawkinson. So we thank Hawkinson for hosting. And so, yeah, just pretty amazing. A couple other things. So upcoming weather. So last week we had a 2-hour late start. We are concerned a little bit about Thursday and Friday. So we're watching that. I was sharing, I think, with Chuck earlier today that I'm in communication with other superintendents in Clark County as well as superintendents in Skamania. So just checking in to see what decisions they're making, what decisions that what we need to make. Again, Washougal is a little unique in our property and our campuses, and as we go upriver, kind of what happens in the gorge. So not always do Clark County schools do what we do. So because of that, and so we sometimes Skamania and also Stevenson don't do what we do just because of the nature of our topography here. So anyway, we'll update you. So you'll be one of the first ones to know. So I think that we have a really good plan. Les does a great job with communicating. David and his team are on the road 4-ish, 4:15, 4:30, checking the roads. And so then I wait to see what David and his team have determined, and then we make our decision. But again, I follow up with Les in that communication as well as the other Clark County superintendents. And then that's the next item. So that's what I have for updates.
Anybody on the board have anything they need to share, or what to share?
Happy we're moving on the contracts on the roof project. Apparently that's not going to get there before winter, but
yeah,
it's moving. That's really good news.
I just want to share, I've had multiple people come and thank us for making our choice for you, for superintendent, for making it go as smoothly as it did and our choice to bring you on. So I just wanted to share that. And had lots of people congratulate us and know that we made the right decisions.
good. Appreciate that. We're in the honeymoon stage, right? Yeah.
I love
So
it.
thank you.
That's all I have.
Okay.
Ida, did you have anything? No. Okay. All right. Next up, we have our CTE month proclamation.
Yes. Yep. Absolutely. So I don't have a proclamation, but I have one of Margaret's quotes that's going to be going out here, and really I just wanted to. This is February is CTE month, and so CTE is career and technical education, and so career and technical education really is focused on our students 7th grade to 12th grade getting these experiences that are connected to 21st century skills, that are working with teachers that have this industry experience. And so these experiences they have are, for the most part, are electives, but they can also be classes that are connected to core graduation credits, so math, science. And so it's an amazing program that we have in Washougal. I have always been a strong believer in the support that the state provides. We have an amazing director over CTE, and so she really has gotten our program to where it is. She's innovative. She supports our teachers. They have additional expectations on them because they're CTE teachers in their credentials and get ongoing professional development. But the exposure our students get, again, starting the 7th grade through their 12th grade year, and our teachers who really guide them to, in many cases, careers, electrical, they're in construction, diesel mechanic through Cascadia Tech, which we were talking to a parent earlier today who talked about her experience in Skill Center when she was in high school. That's what Cascadia Tech used to be called, was Skill Center. Now it's, our Cascadia Tech Academy. And so we are thrilled with what's happening with CTA. The idea that our 7th graders and 8th graders have exposure and they really do identify. In the 7th grade, we work with them due to a graduation requirement about like, what is it going to be for you as a career opportunity. So we know that our kids aren't necessarily making a decision then, but they're getting exposed to these through CTE classes, exposure to those experiences. So Margaret, I don't know if you want to add anything to, you were at the city council meeting last night. I think the proclamation was presented.
Yeah, no, I just, CT month is national. So it's not just here in Washougal or here in Washington State, it's a nationally recognized month. And it's really to showcase, what our kids can do, what the programs that CTE have for our students allow them to do. So it's a really great way to celebrate. We have a lot of things happening this month, I feel a lot of pressure. But there's a lot of activities where our students are working to show off their skills. We have our first food truck Friday this month. We have our hopefully first annual 5th grade toolbox builds, having our high school students mentoring our 5th grade students through that build. It's going to be chaos. It'll be awesome. I can't wait. All the elementaries are doing it, and we've got a really lovely donation from Careers in Construction in order to fund that event. So, and there's many more things happening. So, anyway, I'm excited for those things and appreciative of the recognition.
Right. Yeah. And the support that the board provides for these programs. And we are working on a tour to Cascadia Tech. It's at some point in the near future to see those programs. And so on Friday, students, last Friday, our students throughout last week were identifying those that want to be at the Cascadia Tech program, identify what programs. And so on Friday, 2 of our staff members went to the Cascadia location and like kind of worked on those decisions. So along with the Washougal, other school districts in the county are participating. Yeah, so
quite a process. So they actually started in January to go through this process. So and yeah, Kathy and Aaron both went to Cascadia Tech with a lot of other school districts personnel to actually, it's basically registration day. So to register our students and students from around the county into their programs.
it is, yes.
How many students did you say? There's around 70. Wow,
That's awesome.
that's awesome.
So yes, 70 of our students are choosing either a first year program or
they've
their
been
second year.
selected to return.
Yeah. Yep. Okay. Thank you for that.
We are on to our school bus purchase presentation.
Yeah, so David Tsao is here, our transportation supervisor. And so I believe you were provided the information we have. And every year we look to purchase new buses. And we also look to say goodbye to older buses. So that process, and as we've shared, I think we do a really good job of that process. And so our transportation fund, and because of the way we do this, we don't rely on general fund or levy funding. So these are through the transportation program. So David, I think you have some information, and one of the questions we want to have is, do you have any questions about our plan? But David, you want to give a little bit of context?
Yeah, sure. Thank you very much. We have roughly in our fleet, I'm guessing we have what, 30 some odd, 35 some odd bigger buses, and we have about a dozen smaller buses and so forth. But they to explain the TVF, the fund that we purchased with, there's a depreciation schedule that the state uses. Big buses are on 13-year schedule and small buses are on 7 years. So from a financial standpoint, any bus beyond 13 years or 7 years is really of no financial use to our district because we get no funds associated with that to build the fund up to buy the next bus. The idea is that the state's going to provide depreciation. So at the end of that period, you have, it's never quite enough, but because prices increase and all that kind of stuff. Anyway, so theoretically, there's a fund there available for you to purchase new buses and that sort of thing. Over the last couple of years, we have decommissioned approximately about a dozen, both combination of mostly big buses. It's interesting. We asked for a quote to trade them into a dealership and that sort of thing. It's usually $500 or something like that. We get about $2,000 to scrap them at the scrap yard. So we typically we end up scrapping those buses. The little buses, not quite so much so because there's so much plastic in those things that it's not worth quite as much. But anyway, so we've gotten last 3 years, we've gotten decommissioned about 12 buses. They usually have been with us for 15 plus years. So they're well out of depreciation and all that kind of stuff. And we are replacing those buses, not necessarily with 12. It's going to be just slightly less than that number, relatively speaking, because the district has shrunk up a little bit and we've consolidated a few things and that kind of thing. So in the last 2 years, we have received, I think 4 or 5 big buses and 2 small buses at this time. So we have currently 2 buses at the dealership right now that's going to be delivering next month. They're both 40-foot buses with undercarriage storage and a couple of neat things about them is that they're 84 passenger buses, as Chuck and I were just talking about. They're scheduled to, hardly ever do we carry 84 passengers. That's a lot of kids in a bus. They're just described that way, but they're 26 seats. So typically for high school students, we're looking at 52 or something like that, and a little bit more for elementary kids and stuff. But the way we are setting those up right now is that we have undercarriage storage, so they're available for field trips and all that kind of stuff, athletic events and all that. And then secondly, we also have the first 2 rows of seats with built-in booster child seats, so that when we have buses that are carrying anywhere from TK kids all the way, or even preschoolers sometimes, all the way up to well, not high school, but through middle school, at least anyway. We have a combination of seating options so that the little ones can be buckled into the boosters and that kind of thing. And so without having to have boosters transferring from bus to bus. And so eventually I hope that we get to a fleet where that flexibility is available for all of our buses and seems to make sense. Now, contrary probably to Chuck's desires, I know that he was kind of involved with a Thomas bus dealer. We currently have had much better luck with the Bluebird line of buses. 90% of our buses currently are probably of the Bluebird brand. We only have maybe 10 or 15% left that are of Thomas buses. Most of them are the last dozen that we've gotten rid of. I think it's about maybe 60-40% Thomas versus Bluebirds, but they have been here for quite some time. We have 3, I think only 2 or 3 Thomas buses left in our fleet at this point, and they'll be with us for another probably 10 years or so before. But in the meantime, we have consistently stayed with the Bluebirds up to this point for a couple of different reasons. It's never down to pricing because we're all based on a state contract basis, as you can see in our proposal. And but it is the ergonomics and usability, and probably the biggest reason is the dealer service levels and parts availability for this particular brand has been over the past 5 or 10 years a little bit better than what Thomas has shown us at this moment. So anyway, so now This proposal is looking at 25 and 26 orders of buses. We typically would only probably order 1 or 2 in the next year or so because of we've ordered a couple of them every year coming up to this point. But there's a new requirement coming up that meets the CARB requirements that came out of California. At the end of 2025, the current diesel engine as we know it, if it's manufactured beyond December 31st, it no longer meets the federal requirements for CARB requirements from an emission standpoint. Could that change? Maybe, maybe not. But as far as we know it right now, Washington, Oregon, and California is already there, but Washington is there in 2025 and Oregon is there in 2026. They've delayed it an extra year. We actually delayed a year from 25, 26. So we are proposing to purchase 3 of the last of these diesels before they become obsolete. And will they develop a new diesel that might fit these requirements? Maybe. We just don't know the answer to that. What Cummins is currently developing for the next generation of buses is a gas version bus that's actually going to meet those CARB requirements. And they will only come not in a rear engine bus, only in a front engine bus for 26, 27. So there's some limitations that we're dealing with right at the moment. So does that make sense what I was trying to explain there?
Yeah.
So that's the reason why we're looking at 3 buses to order in 25, 26, and we'll probably buy no buses of the big variety in 26, 27, but perhaps we might get a couple of smaller ones to fill in that gap as well.
And we really do have a 5-year plan.
Mhm.
And so we had adjusted because of what David just shared. We made some adjustments. And we also know that there's some legislation right now that might impact some of our future decisions on the size of buses that we're buying. So
Yeah, so what happens is that by the fact that we bought 3 buses, our depreciation amount will increase over the next 10 to 13 years. And that replenishes that fund. I think our current fund is in the $1.5 million range, and it'll deplete down to under $1 million with the purchases that we're talking about. But then every year it builds back up to, where we've been maintaining between $1.2 million and $1.5 million in our fund from year to year. It's a great way for districts to get new equipment, and hopefully that particular process with the state will remain, because otherwise we will be looking at levies or what some districts do that. They go out for a levy for bus levy and that kind of stuff. So anyway, so this proposal is for 3 of the D84 buses, and nothing really unique about it other than the fact that it's $100,000 per bus more than it was 3 years ago, right at the start of COVID.
any
It's
questions?
just crazy how much difference there has been.
I don't have any questions.
Do our buses have the outside camera for people skirting the stop?
Well, that's an interesting question. None of our buses have that. I'm exploring and looking at a couple of options that potentially, I'm talking to a vendor called Provision. We are currently using a different vendor that does not have that as a capability. But with these 3 buses, we're looking at that possibility, having cameras on that. It's basically a stop paddle camera on the side by the stop paddle. And then I mean, depends on how much detail you want to get into here, but this new camera system is pretty nice in the sense that currently, whenever we have any video that we're interested in, we go out to the bus yard, grab a video off a bus, and then wait for the bus to come back and grab the video and put it into a dock and use it, right? With this system, when the bus pulls into the yard with a Wi-Fi hotspot in our yard, we can, from my desk or anybody else's desk, view whatever it is that we want to view on any of the buses that happens to be in the yard.
And the camera that you're describing is an aftermarket, or is that something that we would order?
No, it's a vendor that would be a sub vendor, subcontractor, to the bus dealer.
Gotcha.
And so we decide what it is that we want and they install it at their dealership in Oregon.
You know, and I don't know if we talked about that earlier this year when David was presenting about transportation. That's a concern that comes up with our drivers is when individuals do that, right? When they blow through the stop.
Yeah,
gap.
there's we send information as much as we can. You know, when somebody goes by, can you catch a car type? Can you catch a license plate? Can you get a description of the individual? All of those things Washougal Police Department needs before they can issue anything. I would guess we might get 20-25% success that they actually issue a ticket, but it's pretty hard to get one. At the previous district I worked for, I was able, over a course of 5 years, I got 2 that actually tickets were issued, and it's pretty hard to do. It's hard to get all that information when you're in the moment.
Yes.
But having video
Having the video
would help
Yeah.
with that.
Certainly help,
And
yeah.
and so, yeah, we follow the process that we have now because we don't have video on the outside. And then it's one of the reasons we sent out a reminder to our families what the expectations are.
The red light stop
Yeah.
sign.
You know, the interesting part of it, it's almost always occurs in the city. It's hardly ever in the rural areas. And
Sorry.
it's people are in too big a hurry for whatever the reasons are, and it is.
Yeah, I
that's
think-
what it is. So
My brother-in-law drove a school bus up in Michigan, and they started with one bus with a camera, and then over the course of several years,
Yeah.
the income generated from those tickets
Well,
allowed
I'm
them to
not
quit
sure-
every bus. Yeah.
I'm not sure we're going to get any.
No,
part of
but I
that.
But
think-
maybe the police department would
Partnership.
donate.
Yeah.
I'm not sure what they actually get out of it, but the ticket is expensive.
Yeah, it should be. Yeah.
$471 right now is what it is for that ticket. So,
Or potentially
And,
running over a small child. Yeah.
so anyway, it's.
Yeah, I'm just curious about that.
So, I think you have a copy of the quote and, like I say, the proposal is fairly self-explanatory. And, so,
Will these be our first buses with the drop down chains, or do we have buses that currently
no,
have them?
all of our buses
Okay.
have drop down chains, that we run. There's a couple of them that don't, but by and large, all of ours have drop down chains, and they can be very useful, particularly if it's snow. When it turns to icy conditions, they're not very useful.
Yeah.
And those are kind of things that you balance a little bit. It's not the same as actually putting chains on the vehicle like, you know, they used to do. And we still have that capability of doing that, but by the time we get to that point, we're probably not going to school anyway, because
Right.
for a number of different reasons. So,
Right.
anyway,
Thank you.
so that's what we.
All right.
A general question on
Yeah.
busing. The last week storm kind of came in and after everyone was on the bus. How do we deal with that kind of weather situation?
Well, you know, it's Aaron and I have these conversations at 5 o'clock in the morning. It's not the easiest thing because you have to be, it's like I said, last time I talked to here was that we have to be a weather procrastinate as well. Because this week, for instance, what Aaron and I talked about today about Thursday.
This morning,
we talked about it this morning, yeah. So
really early.
That's
yeah,
great.
I called you a little too early too. Anyway, the long and short of it is that the weather, we're expecting somewhere, current forecast is 1 to 3 inches of snow here at river level in Washougal. Thursday morning, beginning about 9 or 10 o'clock, running through most of Thursday. Thursday afternoon, we're looking at possibility upwards of a 1/4 inch of ice that's going to last through. And the temperature is never going to get above 32. So that's what the next couple of days looks like, okay? So at 6 o'clock on Thursday morning, do we take the kids to school or not?
Right.
That's a good question. I don't think we've finished our conversation yet because that if the forecast holds through tomorrow, I think we have a decision to make. Because once you get them to school and the conditions get worse,
Gotta get 'em
it
home.
really becomes a big
Problem.
problem.
Yeah, so last week, once students arrived at school, it snowed for about another hour. And so we were.
But it wasn't
we
too
were-
bad.
Yeah, so we were
It wasn't really
discussing,
too bad.
to continue to, what would we do? So we were having those conversations about what an early release looks like. And so we ended up not having to do that. We've done it in the past.
Yeah.
And we know there's complications with early release because families, aren't necessarily there. And so, and when we do it upriver and we're on snow routes, it's more complicated. So we know we have to work through that. And so we're discussing what Thursday and Friday looks like. And we also have to consider, we have, extracurricular activities that are going, field trips that are going. We talked about those.
Actually, I talked to Brooke about her field trip and she's decided to cancel.
Yeah. So anyway, so that's
Because
what
they're
we.
going to Mount Hood. Now, that would be just, the whole thing doesn't work. The whole thing doesn't work for them. And so
Yeah.
we have one other jump to guard. I think we have a
Dan.
knowledge bowl going.
We have a knowledgeable, yes, and then we have the
Thursday.
dance,
We have the dance.
correct.
Right.
So that
Yeah.
came up today. We've got
So-
a dance, we got to
So
consider.
I'm not quite sure where we're at yet. The difficulty was this Thursday was that the previous forecast was for the snow not to happen until midday.
Mhm.
Then you have a decision to make. Okay, could you go in the morning and do an early release possibly? But now the timing has changed and it could change again tomorrow. So we'll make a better decision hopefully on Thursday morning.
Yeah.
And
More informed decision on Thursday.
if the forecast holds, I think it's going to be hard for us to go on Thursday. If the forecast holds, and it could change. Nobody knows that.
You'll let
so.
Aaron know at 4 a.m.
Yeah, well, he doesn't like me calling him at 4. He likes it more like 5 o'clock, So it's one of those deals, but
Yeah, I so appreciate David and his team and this, I'm not sure how many people, and maybe more people know now that are joining this call of what happens, right? That we have individuals driving the streets and then sharing information. And then we as a team make this decision. And there's really a short window of time to make it, because we need to get that information pushed out to our families and our drivers and our
drivers, because we have drivers started leaving their houses at 5:30 in the morning.
And we have custodians who are actually, based on the weather conditions, that dictates what they do when they first get to their site. So David, thank you for sharing.
Thank you.
Yep, thank you so much.
Yeah, and then we'll make a decision at our next board meeting.
Yeah,
Thank
that's
you.
right. 2 weeks, right? Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you,
Cool.
David.
Thanks.
All right, next on our agenda would be the long-range development plan discussion.
Right, yeah, so Jim had brought up weeks ago, just this idea of long-range planning. And so I thought, why don't we first kind of review, we have our strategic plan, which currently is sunsetting at the conclusion of this year. It was a 6-year plan. Les and I have started meeting with schools, like our staffs at Canyon Creek. We met last week. We met with Hathaway's boosters. Last night we met with Columbia River Gorge boosters. We met the district leadership team. We have 20+ meetings that we're going to be going out and getting input for the strategic plan, which really is our commitment to our students, to our families, to our staff, our community, on what's important, what we've prioritized, and the direction we're going. So it's our roadmap with goals and metrics to determine how are we doing based on what we prioritize. So that's the strategic plan. We also have our facilities plan, so our capital project plan. So that also is a 6-year plan. So that capital facility plan, which was revised a few years ago, it concludes 2027. I think it's a good idea for us to look at that plan and revise that plan for another 6 years. So that's typically what that capital plan is in duration. And so both of those plans are 6 years. What we've been talking about a little bit, I think, is this idea of longer than that. So the city right now is working on a 20-year plan.
Mhm.
So their comprehensive plan for 2025 to 2045, and they're looking at projected growth. This is a part of a requirement for them to do this planning, and there's stipulations within that plan on the growth that they're looking at and the type of housing that's going to be available, commercial properties available, residential. So Us being connected to the city in that planning, because that impacts obviously
Mhm.
us in roads and what's available to our students and our families as far as getting to and from our school sites. And we've been looking at recently a future site. We'll continue to look at a future site. So that kind of planning has helped for us. So I think that I just want to, like, as a reminder, we have
Mhm.
2 6-year plans, but this is really more about like, what is the city doing? What is the county doing? And when the city is saying, you know, the city of Washougal's population is going to increase to 25,000, you know, we're not exactly sure how many students that's going to mean for us, but it's why we have to be ready for that type of growth.
Yeah, I think once the city releases their plan, I guess I saw the benefit of having that 15 to 20-year plan implemented with buy-in from stakeholders around the community, as opposed to before the place I worked developed that. It was kind of every department grabbing for themselves and a hodgepodge of buildings and et cetera. And I think every district could benefit by having, in addition to those 6-year strategic, 6-year capital projects, some cognizance of the fact that doesn't end in 6 years. It's another 6 years and another 6 years. And if we want to control our destiny, then we can plan for it. And
Right.
I think getting a group together that includes board, staff and admin, community members to think about that and think, where do we see Washougal schools being in 15 years? And we have things to build upon. We have things that we've tried haven't worked so well, but I just think district would benefit by having that kind of a process.
Yes, thank you. Anybody else have thoughts about this kind of this process and the duration of time that we're looking? Again, the city is 20 years, the county, I believe, is a 20-year plan.
I think it makes sense. I think also maybe soliciting the city to see if one of them can join our
Yes.
committee on that. So you've got that partnership going on and get real insight into this is our goal, this is the likelihood we think
Right.
it's gonna happen, all of those sort of things. It makes perfect sense to me.
Thank you. I think that includes the port as well.
Mhm, absolutely.
Knowing that the port is a partner of the cities and as well as ours. And then, yeah, I agree with having someone with the city planning be available to us to share not only their planning, but also help us with our
Yeah.
decisions.
Yeah.
And the port is developing quite a bit of housing
They are, yes.
currently, that, depending on the price point, could impact our enrollments or not.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
if we want impact on that, it'd be good to be partnering with them.
Yes.
Not that will affect the rent prices, but that seems to be an important determinant of whether families move into an
Absolutely it
apartment or
does. Right.
double income professional couples with no kids move into a project.
Chuck, do you have any thoughts?
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
Sadie?
me too. I think that it's good to have a plan and I think it's important to have everybody's input on it.
Right.
This is a big decisions moving forward.
Right. And I think the facilities plan, allows us to, once we gather input, be very transparent with what we're thinking. And also understanding that it's a duration of time and a lot can happen.
Yeah.
But I think the idea of looking a little bit further down the road than maybe 10, 15 years as you're describing, is going to be helpful for us. And so again, the city is mandated to follow that process. Us, I think, aligning more our planning to what they're seeing and what their progress is going to be makes sense. So yeah, I will be seeking out not only with the port but also the city and looking at. I've also thought of individuals in the community I think would be helpful for us. I know that we had talked a little bit, I think, about when we went to WSD conference, that one of the school districts identified a community team that was very helpful with their bond work. And so this is a similar idea. This isn't a bond, but this is could potentially we could talk about facilities, our current facilities, future, property, future facilities, and then I think all of the information the city can provide as far as what kind of growth is going to look like is going to be helpful for us. And I don't know if Ida has any thoughts about that or not. Actually, I think she's turned off her camera for a second. So there she is. Do you have any thoughts, Ida?
Oh, she's up.
Okay. There we go.
Sounds good.
Perfect.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Great. Next up, we have executive responsibility for staff treatment, and that is Margaret Rice.
Yes. Yeah, so Margaret's here if there are any questions regarding this ER. And so, yeah, so she is really overseeing this work. She updated the document that you have access to. And so this is an opportunity with her being here to answer any questions you might have.
I looked it over. I don't have any questions.
Good.
Everybody good with this one?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. Next one, we've got our district calendar,
All right.
and that would be Miss Tracy. Oh,
We
sorry.
have staff evaluations.
I just skipped one.
Yeah.
Second. Number 6. Staff.
So this one is mine, and similar with other ERs. If you have any questions specific to this one, which is, it really pertains to evaluation process that we use and evaluation, I think some reference to evaluations that we do use with each one of our groups.
A question.
Yes.
In the ER, we require phone or in-person reference checks on all new hires. My question is, we're hiring, we have an opening, do we do reference checks after we've decided who we want to hire or as part of the process of determining whether we want to hire someone?
Right, so they're available to us prior to, so our application process, all the reference materials comes in, and we have a required number of recommendations that we want to see.
Yeah.
And so then we don't, but then once we've interviewed, then we do make that the final reference check.
My understanding of reference check is calling somebody who has observed this person performing to
Yes.
find out whether all they tell us in an interview is true or not, as opposed to reviewing documents. So my question is, do we contact previous employers prior to making a decision?
So once we've identified the individual,
You know,
Or the-
once
or
we
the-
identified 3 individuals or 5.
right. So then we do reach out to that individual's direct. So the one reference that we're looking for is their direct supervisor. Right, so if it's they're currently employed or who was their most recent direct supervisor.
So then if you have like 2 candidates trying to decide, do you use reference checks as part of the decision process?
That can be a part of the decision making. And so typically though, it really is typically when we've identified an individual as our number one, that's the final step. But we do, and maybe I'm not answering your question, but we do, that's a part of our screening process, are those references that we receive.
Yeah, the references you receive. So my concern is if you do a call of previous employer after you've identified the person, what you're really doing is validating the decision we've already
Yes.
made, as opposed to determining whether this person was qualified before making the decision. So
Yeah.
that's just.
Yeah, and I think that our right.
Research is that one of the least effective ways of determining whether somebody can do a job is an interview,
Right.
because that's when you find out if they've got good interview skills. But in the hiring process, we want the best person we can get for every job. And the way to find out if somebody is qualified is to talk to somebody who's watched them perform.
Right.
And so that's what I'm encouraging.
Yeah,
Is
gotcha.
reference checks prior to making a decision.
Gotcha. Yeah. Yep, and that makes sense. And I do think our vetting process that we use, I think we get in before we do the interviews, and then we really have like 2 screening processes. And so once we've identified the individuals that we're going to interview, we're serious about those individuals through the process that we've used. But I absolutely hear what you're saying.
I think just to back up on Chuck, I think in our litigious society, people are willing to be more blunt in a telephone conversation and less open in a written reference. And I agree with Chuck's sentiment that before we select, getting the unvarnished reference. My people in my family that work in schools, they see their written recommendations before we do. And so it's not the same as a cold call reference check to someone who can talk on the phone without fear of legal.
Yeah, but I would challenge that.
Yes.
I would challenge that.
Okay.
Yeah, so I've made a lot of reference calls.
Yeah.
And so you're calling the individuals that have been identified by the candidate,
True.
right?
Yeah.
And so, and there's only so many slots that they put down
Yeah.
for that. And we require multiple individuals and a history of their work.
Yeah.
So I think this is an engaging conversation. I think
Move on.
the preference, the preference and the vetting of the candidates and looking at their body of work. And sometimes, in the past, there's been times where we've brought individuals and had them teach for us. So we see them in action.
That's the best way.
And so, yeah, and in the last couple of years, we truly haven't done many hires because of our current reality.
Yeah.
But previously, there were years where we had, in 2017, 18, we had a lot of hires. And then 18, 19, then it's just been fewer and fewer. But so I think that's there's multiple steps to the hiring process. And what you're describing is that the call to that individual's direct supervisor, and we can do all we can to make sure that who that individual is. And sometimes it's challenging when the hiring season is, and when we're making that call, if that person's available or not. So, but we stand by that it's crucial to get contact with that individual. Again, but it can be challenging to do that.
And another possibility is whoever the candidate lists as a reference, call somebody else that knows them.
Yeah, there's always that option. Yeah, so it's kind of to Jim's point, the following a process every time we do it, and it's the same process, mitigates risk to us as the district.
Right.
In making sure that we mitigate the risk of litigation.
Right. It seems like whatever you're doing is working well.
Yeah.
In terms of
Yeah, so,
hires working out.
yeah, I think we have very qualified applicants when we have a position open.
Yeah.
We typically have several individuals that are interested in really across the system in all of our positions. When I hear districts struggle finding paraeducators, we're not having a hard time necessarily finding paraeducators. Now, sometimes they don't necessarily want to be in the position that's open, but there's typically an interest in all of our positions. And the further we get into this spring with what's happening around us, there's going to be individuals who are looking to be in Washougal, looking for work.
I have no other questions on ER6.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Chuck. All right, now we are on to the district calendar. Do you want me to do it?
I think you can do, the only problem would be the individuals can hear, but we can get a mic. Yeah, so the calendar decision, the process. So Tracy has been the one who has implemented the plan for determining the calendar that we want to present to you. And so this has been me the last few years. I appreciate Tracy's interest in supporting this process. She's been involved with it. And so she is going to share with you some of the steps we took and then the end result, Tracy.
So we gathered together different stakeholders at a meeting right as we came back from winter break. So we had admin, we had CERT teachers, we had PSE represented. We had a student, as we did last year. So we gathered everybody. We had come up with 2 options for the calendar at that time. And they were quite different. Where in past years, actually all the years I've been here in Washougal, I've been on the calendar committee, and they've been more similar, maybe a day or 2 here or there. But as you know, that starting school for Labor Day, after Labor Day. That's kind of been kind of a big move for us. That stayed pretty constant. And then it seems like people are in favor of for the most part. So we pulled those people together. We had a long meeting. And then we had those people in the committee kind of make their recommendation. And they did that. And then we turned around right after that and we put out a survey. And it was brought to our attention from some of our labor partners, WAE especially, to have parents participate in that, in voicing their opinions about the calendar. So this is the first time I believe that we have done that. We collected about 620 votes, which about 182 of those were staff. So quite a few parents kind of voicing their opinions. So, and I will say, as we collected that data, there was a clear winner. Wasn't one or two or here, we have experienced that in the past. It's been a very slim margin. So we had people, and maybe because of the two options that were brought forth, there was some significance in it. Starting before Labor Day and then having a week off in February was something we have not done. Actually, I don't know that we've ever done it here. In a neighboring district about 25 years ago, they did do it. And they are doing it again. So didn't seem like that's what our community wanted. So and we did hear from, we heard through some of the free-form comments that people were able to tell us about, childcare being an issue for that week. Family vacations that are what our weather's like in August as compared to June. So there's, a variety. We felt really good about the process as an exec team that we heard from lots of different stakeholders. And so you all have the calendar option that was chosen. And so I believe that's
Yes.
an opportunity to look at that. If you have any questions.
I'm biased. It was the one I voted for. So.
I just really appreciate that you sent that out, and I love hearing how many people actually responded to it, because I think for some people it doesn't. For me, I'm a stay-at-home mom, so it doesn't matter to me. My kids were like, heck yes, give me a week off in the middle. They really wanted that, but I know that for some families that just wouldn't work. But I'm glad that we were able to have that, the option to be able to vote on it. I think that's really important.
Yeah.
And I know a lot of people that I know that I talk to also appreciate that.
Yeah, we were thrilled that so many participated. Les provided it in Parent Square. It's very easy to complete it and provide some feedback on why. So yeah, so it's I'm with you. I can go either way with that. Some people really were adamant about their choice. So we got the district leadership, we got to kind of go through that. So it was interesting. I think that's gonna be the process. I so appreciate our WA leadership team identifying that as a possibility. And so, I think if we could also include students in that decision as well. And we have to figure out, like, there's a lot of students. So they all voted, right? The end result. But anyway, you ultimately make the decision. And so, yeah, you have the calendar that was chosen by most.
Yes.
Yeah.
Anybody else? Ida, do you have anything to add?
No, I'm kind of biased too. My preference was the one that was the most popular, so.
Action, first reading. This is action or first reading?
First reading, yeah.
So at the end of the month, we'll adopt this as our
Yes.
calendar.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and what you're probably noticing is, so like this meeting, and then we're trying to like, to the first board meeting of the month, where there's an item that you're gonna be deciding on, so you have a chance, you have 2 weeks kind of to work through that decision. So I think I think we're sticking to so far, what the ask was as far as those decisions, yeah. Good.
Thank you.
Thanks, Tracy.
And we did move it up. Typically, this was a decision that was made in March. We think February is better because people are planning, they're making those decisions.
Yes.
So February, other districts, we were able to look at their examples. So other districts do make this decision sooner. I like having us come together, like right after winter break, the team meets. We have a few days to finalize any changes, then we send it out to be voted on.
Well,
Okay.
we actually heard from a couple of parents tonight at the listening tour that they appreciated that we were doing this early.
Yeah.
So they gave us some feedback.
Great, on to our policy 6220, bid or request for proposal requirements, and this will be the first reading on this.
Yeah, so not sure if you have any questions regarding policy 6220. So similar to other revisions, there was an update in statute that has required us to make an update in our process. This one specifically, we reached out to council, getting some support from them on not only the changes, but also a document that we're using to make these decisions on the category. So I wonder if you have any questions.
I'm curious about the motivation behind dropping the requirement for multiple bids in that 75,000.
Yeah, I don't know.
Category.
Yeah, Les, do you have any context behind that decision? Why that revision would take place?
So I think what they're clarifying in the non-federal one is that it's not three written quotes. You can use a slightly less formal process for them. It does still talk about using the informal competitive bidding, which the best practice would be to get three quotes, but they might be telephone quotes or something other than a written. But it's the best practice would still be to get three quotes in that document.
Oh, I see, okay. So we would still do it, they just wouldn't have to be.
But it drops the requirement for any more than one bid.
Yeah,
It's a no
also
bid
is going
contract.
to, reduce the risk of an audit finding around the not meeting that higher bar for the following kind of the mini version of every kind of bidding process.
Say that again, Les, I'm sorry.
So it would be I think the change is also making it less likely that we would have an audit finding for not following kind of a higher bar.
Fair enough, yeah.
So this brings it into alignment with what the rules are, as opposed to us choosing something that's more stringent than others to do.
And just for kind of background, how many of our contracts fall into that soon to be no bid contract zone?
I don't have
I mean, any clue? I mean,
I know that several of the ones that were in the board packet are in that dollar range.
Yeah.
So then the 3 or 4 that were in there today, those were run through a qualification process. So we're doing that for a lot of what we purchase, especially if it's over some, more than the $10,000 or $15,000.
Right.
We're leveraging state master contracts where they've been competitively bid either by Department of Enterprise Services or by a large consortium. So we use the interlocal concept, which is one of the other sections, to do a large transaction. Part of it's because we're not really big enough to have the economy stable to run those really robust procurement processes.
Right.
All of things. And by piggybacking off of other people's purchasing agreements, we usually get a better price. So ours isn't big enough that if we can work with somebody who does a really large volume, we get there just.
okay, thanks.
Can you help me understand the self-certification portion a little bit more?
So leads would have to answer whether
Okay.
they qualify for it or not. I think that's one of the new sections. I think it is going to be related to each year and the outcome of the audit. They'll determine whether we are allowed to do that. But I don't know, I don't recognize it, and I don't know that that's happened yet.
Gotcha. The reason I ask is because of that line that says purchases between $50,000 and $250,000 must be procured using price or rate quotations from a reasonable number. I'd want more
What's
detail into
reasonable?
that. Yeah, like reasonable to me might be 10, and to you it's 2. So if we could get more detail on that, that'd be great.
Right, and this is using federal funds, which we have very little.
Few.
Yeah.
It's not going to be used as like a strict competitive bidding process.
Thank you.
And that would include federal matching funds if we have a project where we have some federal match.
It could, yeah, so like the E-rate grant that I supervise.
Right.
Some of the subsidies for technology stuff, we do the competitive bidding process. We don't use this self-certification thing. So if this was a thing that we were eligible for, I think I would generally know I actually studied federal funds. And so we do, we post those in the Daily Journal of Commerce. We wait the 28 days and then we evaluate the bids that we receive. We follow all of the traditional things. And it doesn't matter the contract dollar amount that we're doing, we do it the same as all of those.
Ida, did you have any questions?
No, thank you.
So we can get back to Jane and Jim, your questions.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Anybody else? That was just our first reading on that too, so. Anybody has questions? All right, we are on to policy 3-11. This would be the gender inclusive schools,
Yes.
which
First
is also first reading.
Yes, and so, yeah, so Connor is here. If you have any questions regarding this policy, which is, yeah, it's an update in title and some of the language of a policy we currently have.
I don't have any questions. It seems to me it's just kind of a title, most of a title change.
Right.
Does anybody else have any? On that?
Be clear.
Yep. Did you have anything on that?
No, thank you.
Right, on to our new policy, 4330, which is the limiting immigration enforcement in schools. And this is also a first reading on this one.
Right. Yes. So again, if you have any questions about this one, I can attempt to answer them. There's like a companion policy specific to law enforcement. This is in particular immigration and customs enforcement. It helps us with the protocol that we follow if and when that were to be something we were doing.
So the summary is immigration custom enforcement would be the same
Yes.
policy as we
Yes.
currently have for.
Yes, for law
law
enforcement,
enforcement.
yes. Yep. And what this will allow, this will allow, and we've already reminded our staff, specifically our building administrators, our secretaries, and they're working with the secretaries who are really the first ones to interact with anyone who comes to a building. Yeah, so this is going to help with some clarity specific to our protocol, as this is a topic of,
And are these published on the
yes,
yes district website?
Yep. So under, under the school board, we have all of our policies are identified and links to them. So PDFs to them. Not every policy has an accompanying procedure that's attached to it, but if that were to be something that would be desired, they can reach out to us, but most of them do have a procedure attached. Yeah.
Thanks.
Ida, did you have anything on this one?
No, I didn't.
I think that's it, you guys.
All right.
Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right.
Meeting is adjourned at 7:34.
Okay.